here today with Coach Jason Brittain of the Angleton Wildcats. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. One of the things I'm trying to do with these interviews is kind of explore and look into how coaches move around, how their careers develop. So, if you don't mind, take us through your coaching career.
Well, I played football at Angelo State, and when I finished playing there, I had a little bit of school left, and so I student coached for a season, and then I started out as a graduate assistant at Angelo State and coaching safeties. In the middle of that spring, my defensive coordinator from high school, who was the head coach at Sinton, where I went to high school, became the head coach at Sealy, and so I left being a GA at Angelo State to go be the secondary coach at Sealy. I was there 2 years, and we had 2 great seasons. And my head coach from high school was the head coach at Alice at that time, became the head coach at San Angelo Central. And so I left Sealy. I went to San Angelo Central. I was at Central for 2 years. And this opportunity came up in Angleton to be the defensive coordinator. So in 2011, I came to Angleton as the defensive coordinator, and I've been the defensive coordinator my first 8 years here. And then in 2018, I became the head coach, and I've been the head coach for the last 4 seasons.
Now, you've mentioned some of the stops you had along the way. You've had coaches that have mentored you, that have helped you develop your career, and both as a coordinator and a coach. That's a bit of the role that you take now, not just coaching players, not just developing players, but developing coaches. Talk a little bit about that mentoring role, the way that works for in the state of Texas.
It's definitely about relationships. This is a networking business, but when I started out coaching at Angelo State, I coached for guys that coached me. And then when I went to Sealy, I coached for guys that coached me. When I went to San Angelo Central, I coached for guys that coached me. And then when I came to Angleton, Coach Roark had coached with coaches who had coached me. So there was kind of connections and all those. I think it's important, as you're working your way up, to surround yourself with people that are in the business for the right reasons. They're going to help you grow and mature, both in the educational setting, and as, becoming a man and having a family and all those kind of things. And guys that that you can trust. But kind of moving into the head coach and athletic director role, you got, and even as a coordinator, you have to start taking those responsibilities. And, as a coordinator, it was always important to me to make sure that I was developing my coaches, not just to be specialists in one position, and so we've had the early morning meetings and making them learn every position and putting them on the board and questioning them and quizzing them and doing all those kind of things, and then becoming the athletic director and the head football coach, making sure that you're talking to your staff members about how to make themselves marketable. Is it as far as what sports you're coaching, what teaching fields you have, what certifications you have, and just, putting them in positions to be marketable either in your program or somewhere else, and so, I don't ever take it personal when we have guys leave to go somewhere else, because I want to help develop them. And if we have an opportunity for them to move up here, that's great. If they have an opportunity that's better for them and their family and they move on, that's great too. And then you just bring somebody else new that you can mold, and that's part of the business. So we don't ever take those things personal. We want to try and help grow and mature, because in the end, we're all in this to help young men and young women be successful in life. And regardless if that's in Angleton or wherever else our staff goes, we still want to be doing those same things.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about other sports, and I'm a football guy, so I tend to get the narrow focus. But as the athletic director there, it's really your responsibility for everyone on both sides, men's, women's, all sports. Talk a little bit about developing coaches whose specialty might be a sport that you don't know a whole lot about.
Well, coaching is coaching, so it doesn't matter if you're coaching tennis, you're coaching football, you're coaching girls basketball, you're working with our 6th grade pre-athletic students. Coaching is coaching. So just, giving them the tools, giving them the resources. I always felt like as an athletic director, it's my job to figure out what are the tools and resources they need to be successful, and then help them and guide them on things they may need help with. But the number one thing, it doesn't matter what sports you're in, is building relationships. And, when we have our first staff meeting with all of our coaches, and we have 52 employees that are in athletics, and we have 1,400 kids in Angleton that are in athletics from sixth grade all the way up. The number one thing I tell our coaches is number one, it's about building relationships. But the next thing is, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have of your sport. If you cannot communicate that to your athletes, it does not matter. So it doesn't matter how good we are at playing football as coaches, or how smart we are, how much film we've watched. If we cannot get that information and those techniques understood by the athletes, then we're just wasting our time, So number one, build those relationships. But number two, develop the techniques that are going to work to get those student athletes to learn the concepts that and it's going to be different for every athlete. So you have to have different tools and resources and different techniques to make sure you can reach all of them.
All right. Well, let's talk now a little bit about football for specifics for the upcoming season. You've seen your guys play in the spring sports, and what do you think you look like so far, and what do you think you're going to look like in the fall?
Yeah, we've had a great spring. It's one of our better off seasons. We've always had great off seasons here. Our kids are very committed, but this has really been one that's stuck out, and it's nice that, you haven't had all the COVID disruptions and things that we faced the last several years. And so we've had a great off season. Kids are really committed. We know we have a lot of returning experience on our football team that made it to the second round last year. And so just the combination of having that great off season, having so many returning players on our football team, we're really excited about, going into next football season.
All right. Well, one more question for you before I let you go, Coach. This is the hard one. Tell me something about Jason Brittain that most people don't know.
When I grew up in a rodeo family. It wasn't a big sports family. And so I guess it was sports, but it wasn't, football, basketball, track, those kind of things. And so growing up, it was riding horses, and it was riding steers and rodeos and all that kind of stuff. And when I got to the age when you had to graduate from riding steers to riding bulls, I went the football route, and it's all, I'm sure our mom appreciated that. And so it's all worked out for me.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you very much for your time today, and best of luck on the upcoming season.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.